The lost city of Atlantis. The very mention of this place sends a shiver down our spines. What was the real story of Atlantis? Hi everyone! Today we'll be taking a look at the full story of Atlantis. Make sure to watch until the end because there are some details that most people don't know about. And make sure to like this video if you enjoy what my team and I are doing. Also, stick around after this video for more great content. Plato's description of Atlantis came in two of his works, the Timaeus and the Critias. Plato had mentioned that he got the story from a historical account written by a man named Solon, who supposedly traveled to Atlantis and lived among its people for some time. According to Plato, 9,000 years before his own time, Atlantis was an actual historical place. In the first dialogue, Timaeus, Plato describes Atlantis as being stronger than all the other nations of the known world at the time. They were powerful enough to wage war with all of the other countries at once and win. Their navy consisted of 1,500 warships, and they were led by a king named Atlas, who was said to have been a descendant of Poseidon himself. The Atlanteans were blessed with wisdom, beauty, and a strong work ethic. Their capital city was said to have been the fairest of any the world had ever seen. However, eventually, the Atlanteans became greedy and arrogant and decided to attack the countries around them. This included the Egyptian Empire, which is where the Oracle of Delphi was located. After conquering many lands, they reached the Aegean Sea, but found it too dangerous to sail any further. So they built a canal through the Isthmus of Corinth to allow their navy to reach the Mediterranean. This made it easy to attack Athens, which was one of the biggest cities in Greece at the time. But the Athenians defeated them and drove them back to their own land. It is said that the gods became angry at the hubris of the Atlanteans and so flooded the island, killing everyone except for their king, Atlas. He survived by escaping to the mountains, where he and his descendants lived in relative peace until the gods saw fit to punish them as well. In this way, Atlantis became a myth. There's quite a bit of evidence that supports this theory. For example, Plato described Atlantis as being surrounded by water on all sides and having a river running through it. This reminds us of the Nile River in Egypt. There's also the fact that the Egyptians would have been close enough to invade Attica, which is where Athens is located. If the island did exist, it would have likely been located somewhere near the Strait of Gibraltar or off the coast of Portugal. Both locations are far away from Greece, and neither one has any large rivers running through them. The thing that really gives this story credence is the fact that there was a real Egyptian empire during this time period. There was also a canal near the Isthmus of Corinth, though it didn't connect the two seas like Plato said it did. It seems as though Plato used the Egyptian empire and the canal to add legitimacy to his story. Unfortunately, he never gave any hard evidence that could lead us to where Atlantis might have actually been located. Another interesting detail is that the Atlanteans kept slaves, even though Plato believed slavery to be wrong. However, when he wrote these stories down, Athenian society still allowed for slavery. Many believe Plato only added slavery into the story to make it seem more realistic. Most mainstream historians today believe Atlantis never existed, but that hasn't stopped people from looking for it. People have claimed to find it all over the world, including in Iceland, Antarctica, Japan, India, Italy, Ireland, and Malta. Even though none of these places match up with Plato's description, it should be noted that Plato was likely making a lot of things up to teach us lessons about the dangers of greed and pride. Some Atlantis hunters believe Plato was actually describing a real place that has since been lost to time. Plato was a philosopher, not a historian, so he may not have been writing about Atlantis as an actual event. This is supported by the fact that many scholars believe Plato modeled the Atlantean city after the real-life city of Athens. Atlantis was actually supposed to be an ideal city. Its citizens were wise and just, and its government was ruled by a philosopher king. Does this sound familiar? Well, it should, because this is exactly how Plato believed Athens should be run. There are even scholars who believe that Plato created Atlantis as a fictional place to compare Athens to, showing its strengths and weaknesses at the same time. Some go even further and say that Plato was talking about ancient Sumer. This is because Plato described the Atlanteans as being blessed by Poseidon, the god of the sea. Could this have been a reference to the Sumerians inventing ships and becoming a powerful maritime nation? There's also a popular theory that claims Atlantis wasn't a physical place at all, but rather a group of people. The nomadic seafaring people called the Lusitanians traveled all over the Mediterranean, raiding coastal villages and trading with merchants. These voyages took them all the way to the British Isles, where they raided monasteries and stole treasure. Many believe that Plato used the Lusitanians as inspiration for his fictional people. Others say that Atlantis was a metaphor for the human race itself. Humans are innately flawed, just like the Atlanteans, and will always seek power and wealth. No matter how great a civilization becomes, it will eventually fall due to the actions of mankind. But Plato wasn't the only person to write about Atlantis. In the 60s, an alleged prophet named Edgar Cayce predicted that the lost city could be found off the coast of North Carolina. His reasoning for this was that the outer rim of the continent of North America was similar to how Plato described it. Cayce was referring to the Outer Banks, a series of islands stretching from Virginia to Bermuda. While it's true that the Outer Banks do resemble Plato's description, modern science says otherwise. According to geologist Robert Saratops, the Outer Banks weren't formed until after the supposed destruction of Atlantis. It's possible that Cayce was referring to the Bahamas instead, though. The largest island, New Providence, looks a lot like how Plato described the capital city of Atlantis. If we follow Plato's description, the island should have a river running through it. While there aren't any major rivers in the Bahamas, there is a large underground aquifer. This could have been what Cayce was referring to when he spoke of the river. New Providence is also relatively close to Cuba, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. The three regions were once joined together to form one landmass, but a natural disaster separated them. Was this what Cayce had in mind when he thought of the Atlanteans fleeing to the mountains? Another theory claims that Atlantis was actually a real place that still exists today. Many believe that the North American continent was once connected to Europe and Africa. This means that if Atlantis was located in the Atlantic Ocean, it could have been anywhere along the coast. Over time, rising sea levels may have submerged the island and erased any evidence that it ever existed. The problem with this theory is that there's no way sea levels could have risen that much without melting most of the polar ice caps. Even if this were true, there would still be some kind of evidence left behind. Scientists haven't found any signs of Atlantis in the Atlantic, but that doesn't mean that explorers haven't tried. The first person to search for the remains of Atlantis was a man named Ignatius Donnelly. He combed through the coast of Ireland in the mid-1800s, believing it to be the lost city. Unfortunately, he didn't find any evidence to support his theory. A few decades later, a man named Cyrus Reed spoke of finding pyramids off the coast of North Carolina. He believed that Atlantis had been built on top of these pyramids, and that's why Plato described it as being so grand. These days, there are underwater exploration teams searching for the lost city, but so far, nothing has turned up. Maybe Atlantis really was just a figment of Plato's imagination, or maybe it still exists somewhere out there waiting to be found. Now it's time to make your voice heard. Which theory do you think is true? Let us know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. Everyone, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out the next one. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to support us, my friend. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video.